Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of the season 2 of TEPS Present Teacher. TEPS Present Teacher is essentially a live webinar or podcast where we talk about multiple different things in the space of education, specifically for teachers and how we can help and support teachers. Um, so today's episode is a little different. It's a little different in many different ways. One, we are going to be broadcasting this from three different locations. One in Baroda, Gujarat, one in Mumbai, and one in Bangalore. And we have three experts this time instead of just one, who are going to be talking about different aspects of this topic of how do we get to know our students and why should we get to know our students. Why should we get to know our students right from the beginning, right from day one, as I say. So before we get into the actual topic and I introduce the guests, experts that we have, let me just tell you a little bit about Things Education, the company or the organization that brings you TEPS. So TEPS and Things Education essentially wants to create an ecosystem of support around teachers and educators. And we do this in multiple different ways. We have our TEPS courses, which are a combination of online and offline courses that are available. Our online courses are available on the same platform that you are on. So after this, you can go and look at the different offerings that we have. We also do in-person sessions in concert with the schools so that the entire school teachers are exposed to different kinds of pedagogies, classroom management techniques, cognitive behavioral science principles, etc. Apart from that, we also have a multiple digital resources, right from lesson plans to activities to teaching strategies, and we also have a weekly newsletter which talks about all things pedagogy, all things classroom management, and again everything is focused on the teacher here. So apart from all of this, we also have a school management tool, which is the classroom observation tool and the school management report, which helps the management understand what is happening in the classroom. This classroom observation tool helps you understand what are the things that are happening in the classroom or not happening in the classroom, which helps you make informed decisions on what kind of teacher professional development you would want in your school in the coming months. So with that, I think we'll just dive deep into this webinar today. So before I give you the overview, one thing is we like to keep this interactive as possible. So whenever you have a question or a thought, please share whatever you want to share right on the chat. It helps us also kind of modulate our conversations, and we will obviously have a question answer session right at the end where we'll take up any question that we have not taken up so far in the during the course of the webinar. So today's webinar is kind of divided into three parts. First is that we'll just talk about the need to know our students beyond just the academics. A lot of our assessment is focused on whether the students are reaching the learning levels or not, which is important. There's no doubt about it. At the same time, it's also important to know students just beyond their learning levels, because that not only helps us put some context around the learning levels, but also may be able to maybe help us understand what kind of things will work for the student so that they can achieve their learning levels. And we'll go into that in a little bit of detail. Then we have a conversation with a teacher on how we can actually do this. How do I actually get to know my students better? What can I do in person in the classroom? And we'll get very practical tips from a teacher. And finally, we'll have a conversation with a parent as well, as to what are the things that they would like from a teacher, or what are the things that they want to know from a teacher. And of course, we'll end with a question answer session at the end, like I said earlier. So with that, let me introduce our first expert, who's Ritu. And my question to her is that knowing students' academics is kind of done all the time. How do we now move beyond that? What are the aspects that we need to look at? And then a little bit about why it's so important.
Thanks, Anirudh. I hope I'm audible. Please let me know if I'm not. So, like Anirudh said, of course, the main focus in school is on ensuring that students are meeting their academic levels, they are learning academic skills, they are learning academic concepts. That is the main role that we have as teachers in school. Um, However, what we're trying to say here is that our students are whole human beings, and we need to understand other aspects of their life, of their personality, of their emotions, in order to understand them as students as well. So, one, it's important to know the student as a whole human being, but also all of these different aspects that we're going to talk about, they finally do affect how students perform academically. So we'll understand that in a little bit with a few examples. But first and foremost, what is it apart from the academics that we need to focus on? So let's try and understand that a bit. Mm, when we talk about the academic abilities of a student, we we think about usually we think about how they are writing in their notebooks, in their exams, in their assignments, because all exams are focused on the written product that a student is able to give us. And so, subconsciously, without realizing it, we start focusing on academic abilities in the form of what students are able to write and give us. However, apart from these academic abilities, apart from the written form of expression, there are some other things that we need to know about our students. One, we need to know their emotional patterns. And what do we mean by emotional patterns? We need to understand that students will come into school sad, angry, frustrated, happy, excited. There'll be a range of emotions that they'll bring in. And we need to be aware of that how is a student feeling today? What is the general emotion that they're coming in with? And also, how do different students express these different emotions? So, one student may express frustration in a particular way, maybe they shut down, maybe they go quiet, and another student may express frustration by acting out, by maybe by misbehaving a little bit. So if we have this understanding of our students, we understand how they feel. It helps us then cater to that and change the way we're approaching them on a particular day to ensure finally that they are doing well in class that day. The next thing that we should understand about our students, and this is something that is very often quite ignored, is what is the home context? What is the student bringing in from their home, or what is it that they're going back to? By this, we mean things like, are there responsibilities that the child has at home that is really beyond a child's ability? For example, are they expected to cook and clean? Are they expected to take care? Maybe they're solely responsible to take care of younger siblings, which is it's a huge burden on kids of that age. Do they have supportive parents? If they have supportive parents, if parents help them with their homework, if they're involved in their academics, that really changes the context of the child, because they're a lot more confident, they're a lot more able when they come to school, versus if they're in an environment that doesn't really support them with homework, with their academics. So knowing that is also very important. Um, this is something that teachers do get to know over time, but actively trying to understand what are these interests and hobbies that my students have. Individual students, what is it that they would do if they were given free time with no instructions? What is it that they would go towards? Now, knowing their interests and hobbies is again an important part of understanding them as a human being, as a whole person, and of course helps also in customizing or personalizing some of the teaching that we do. What is it that how do my different students like to express themselves? There may be some kids who are great at explaining things when they're talking, when they're having a conversation, versus when they have to write, they may not be that great. Or a student who's really struggling to write or struggling to have oral conversations, is really good at using art and creative forms of expression to show their understanding. Knowing this again helps us understand what is, maybe a student may not be able to express themselves in one particular way, and that leads us to judge their academic ability overall. But if we understand that there are different modes of expression and different students do this differently, it helps us in the class as well. And finally, something that we are able to see in class, in during break time, during lunchtime, during academic time as well, is what are the social behaviors of students. Do they have friends? Do they make friends easily? When they're with their friends, how do they behave? Are they relying on more confident students? Are they the more dominant ones? So what are these social behaviors that they're bringing in? That is something that we should also understand about our students. I'll give a couple of examples of how this connects to academic abilities finally. But what I'd also like is if you could share in chat what you think. How does knowing the home context, for example, of a child help you in class as a teacher? How does knowing the emotional pattern of a student help you in class as a teacher? So, if you have any anecdotes in mind, if you've seen how it helps you in the class, you've taken that into consideration and maybe changed the way you interact with a particular student, let us know in chat, in the chat box, what your experiences are, what your thoughts are. One example that I feel very strongly about is something to do with their home context. So say a student has a lot of responsibilities at home. She or he is expected to take care of the younger siblings, take care of their homework, take care of their food, make sure that they're sleeping, make sure that they're clean. When she goes back home, when this child goes back home, this is what she's doing, and that is why she's not able to complete her homework. Um, if I know that, then what I can do as a teacher is make sure that she gets some time in school, in class to complete her homework, and the expectation for her to complete all homework in at home is reduced from my end. And I'm trying to support her by giving her that time and space in school to complete her homework. Similarly, if I see a particular student's social behavior, in the sense that whenever I ask a question in class, she turns to her friend and she whispers something to her, and then that friend raises her hand and gives the answer in class, which lets me know that this child is she knows, she understands what is happening in class. She has thoughts and opinions and answers to give, but she's not confident enough to share them, and so she always tells her friend. So when I notice this social behavior, when I understand this social behavior, what I can do as a teacher is I can make sure that this child starts off sharing in small groups. She slowly builds her confidence, and I actively do things to help her build her confidence, so that she's also able to share in a whole class setting, and that aspect of her personality, of her behavior also improves, also becomes stronger. So these are a couple of examples of how these different aspects of our students' lives, of our students' personality help us in academics. What we'd like to know again is, do you have any examples? Do you have any anecdotes from your class? What do you think about emotional patterns? If you're able to see that a student is always coming into school feeling extremely low, but by the end of the day, the energy goes up, the enthusiasm goes up. How would that affect the way you work with this child? Or if you know that a particular child prefers to uh, express their understanding through drawings, through doodles, how would that change the way you work with this child? One example that comes to my mind is that I had a student a few years back who, uh, whenever I was teaching, she would always be doodling, and that gave me the impression that she's not listening. But when I would look at her doodle, she was actually noting down everything that I was saying, but in a very visual and a very creative way. So mm, after that, my expectations of her changed. One, I didn't expect her to be looking at me while I'm explaining things, but I also understood that her way of expressing is very creative, very visual, and so when I asked them to do assignments, I also adjusted my expectations for her. One response we've got in chat is that considering the dynamics of the family, home context helps us. If parents are going through a divorce, this child became aggressive, and that is of course understandable. And so we're not going to be overly strict with that child. We'll understand. We give them space to talk. Maybe we could also refer them to a school counselor to help them. So knowing that sort of home context is extremely important. So thanks for that. I think that's a very important example. Keep sharing in chat if you come up with more such anecdotes or more such experiences or examples. What we'll do now is we'll move on to the next part. We'll understand a little more about what we can do in class as teachers to understand these different aspects of students' lives. So,
Yeah, I think all of you who are listening, please share with us what you think, how you think home context can make a difference to a student, or what your experience has been in some at some times, right? Like for example, a student of mine did not like to write; they just like to draw. Another student of mine who said that, you know what, I'm not interested in science, and it was a science class. So I asked her, what are you interested in? And she said, I'm interested in journalism. So while the other students were working on whatever they were working on in this for the science part of it, I asked the student to, why don't you just go and write a report on what that group is doing? And for her, that was journalism, but she had to figure out the science behind what that group was doing. And so she was also learning science in that way. So, the different modes of expression, or just those different things that we think that we as students like, it's good to leverage these things as well. So yeah, so now before we move on to the next part of this, we have a quick poll or a check for understanding. Essentially, what we are asking is, from whatever Ritu spoke about right now, just give us an example. Choose one of these as which would be an example of understanding students beyond academics. And a poll will come up on your screen shortly. There's A, B, C, and D. The options are given to you. Just go through the options and select one of these options as your as what you think would be the right answer. Okay, so if we can move to the next thing, that's okay. We can move to the next slide, please. Yes. So 80% of you got it right that yes, if a student is not finishing their assignments, and as a teacher, I come to know that it's because their day has been planned out with a lot of extracurricular activities, and that is why they're not getting enough time to finish their assignments. That is understanding students beyond academics. Academics is, just making sure that students are finishing their assignment or not. But why that's happening and going deeper is understanding students beyond academics. That's great. And 20% of you actually also mentioned B as one of the options. The student is distracted in class and does not do well in the formative assessment, showing need for special attention. This, I understand that because the word special attention is there, one might think that, okay, this may be beyond academics. At the same time, just looking at formative assessments is not enough. The formative assessments not doing well is probably the first step, and we might need to investigate or try to find out more. But we still haven't found out anything about the student beyond academics, right? So with that, what we'll do now is we'll start with a conversation that we're going to have with a teacher. And for that, I'm just going to introduce her to you first. We have Pooja Sheth, who's been working with us for a few years now. At the same time, she has been a teacher for more than 15 years. And in that time, she has worked with hundreds of students and hundreds of different kinds of students. So she will bring us a completely teacher's in practice perspective of what we need to do to understand our students beyond academics. And so for that, Pooja, firstly, welcome. If you could just tell us a few things about yourself and then, just start us off on that.
Thank you, Anirudh. Hello, everybody. My name is Pooja Sheth, and I've been associated with Things Education for the past 3 years. But as Anirudh also mentioned, I've been a teacher, a preschool teacher for the past 17 years, and I've worked with all three groups of 3 to 6 years old. And each year we see that the new generation of children keep changing. So each year we see that a new generation of children are coming to us, and that is why knowing your children at the beginning of the year has become very important. So every teacher is really excited when she starts a new year, and you get your list of students that are going to come to you before the school starts or before the session starts. Uh, you might have gone through the report cards, you might have talked to their previous teachers. We as teachers sometimes go with a preconceived notion about the students that we have. But when the children go for a break, a summer break, and they come back to you after a month, there's a lot of changes that are happening in the students. It might not just be academic changes, but there are also physical, mental, emotional changes that they grow through. And hence, it is becoming very necessary to get to know them at the beginning of the year. Now, there are a few ways that we can do it. One is observing them before you start teaching. Sometimes just looking at your students or watching students when they are not being instructed is the best way to get to know your students. Second is having one-on-one conversations with them. Short everyday chats will always tell you more about a student before a worksheet ever will. Third is like we have emotional check-ins. Like you do a quick emotional check-in on how your students are feeling that day, and that might help support your learning also. And the fourth one is having low pressure activities where there is no judging or there is no grading, but they're just activities where the children express themselves.
Right. So thanks, Pooja. I think that's a great checklist of things. Can we now go a little bit deeper into each of them, if you don't mind? So what you're saying essentially is first you observe students, then you can converse with them, and then we'll go into a slightly more specific and deeper stuff later. So let's just start with the observation part. Students have come in. There's a new batch of students. They have most of them have kind of been together for some time, unless it's the first year of preschool. And then you as a teacher, are observing them from a slightly, I would say, a distance. right? So then how do you do that, and what does it teach us?
Yeah. So, like the title says, it is observe before you teach. As soon as the students come to you, you know, sometimes for the elder students or the higher grades, because there is a pressure of finishing the syllabus, we jump into academics from the beginning. But in when we do that, we forget to get to know our students. And so, there are some ways of doing it where you don't have to give an extra time. It's not going to take up extra time of your day, but it's just going to take up some more attention that you give to your students. One of them is observing. So it is of course it is important all through the year. It's not that you just observe them at the beginning of the year, but observation happens throughout the year when you're doing your formative assessments also. But it does matter the most in the first few weeks. So, what is it that happens when you're observing your students? First, you are observing helps understand a student's natural behavior. Now, what do you mean by the natural behavior? That is how a child behaves or acts when they're not being instructed. Usually, during their free play time or during a snack time or during their pack up time or when they come in the morning. The students are more relaxed and they know that they are not being watched for performance. Say, for example, during free play time, once I saw one of my students, I gave them free play time and she just started going and setting up the block area and while the others are still deciding what they want to do. So this showed me that she was more confident to take on the lead and you so when you do these kind of observations, you know who is the leader, who is going to stay behind and not really take part actively in the activities that are happening, or someone who is always ready to help. These are all natural behaviors that come out when you observe them. Second is building trust. Now, when students feel that they are being noticed or they are being accepted the way they are, uh, it is building a lot of trust in you as a teacher. Say someone who is usually very silent, if you just greet him early in the morning when he comes, and if you just greet him and say, uh, e- every day you just go and greet him and say two lines, there's no questions, there's no pressure over here. But slowly over time, that kid gains confidence and he starts trusting you. Second is highlights. The third point is highlights the strength beyond academics. Now, not all strengths show up when you give them an worksheet to do. When you observe them, you will see that some are organizers, some are storytellers, some are helpers. So these are the strengths that are highlighted when you're observing them. Like I said, not during the academic part of the day, but the other parts where they are free to do what they want without any instructions. And the last is reveals learning needs early. Uh, Through observation, when you're observing when they're playing with kids or when they're playing with learning teaching aids or something like that, and you're just observing them, you get to know which child has already grasped the concept before and which child is still struggling. So when you're making these kind of observations, you can actually that this child n- will need a little bit more support to get a clear concept, to get a clear understanding of the concept, while the others who have finish their teaching aid or finish their kit very quickly might not need that much support. So this is what happens when you observe.
Right. Thanks, Pooja. And I think someone, Minal, has also shared that if you assign some responsibilities to the students themselves, especially the ones that are showing you signs of leadership, like the example that you gave, where the blocks, someone started putting the blocks while people were still discussing. That also helps in building trust as we go ahead in our curriculum and in our sessions. So yeah, great. Thanks, Pooja. That helps, and thank you, Minal, for sharing. So now let's move to the next part of it. So observation is as far as possible non-intrusive. Now let's take a small step towards actually having a slightly more intrusive, or asking questions of the students. So how do conversations help, Pooja, and how do we do them?
So, like I said before, I know there's a lot of pressure on teachers to finish academics and syllabus and everything. And when we are doing that, sometimes we just forget to talk to our children, like really spend that little quality time with them and talk to them to get to know them. Uh, if you do a self check, you will feel that most of the time you're instructing your students and not talking to them. And so when you want to get to know your students in the beginning of the year, having one-on-one conversations helps a lot. The good news is that you don't really need long conversations, or you have to sit with them for 10 minutes and ask a lot of questions, or like that. But even a 30-second or a 1 minute conversation can make a big difference if it is well thought of, if you know what kind of a conversation you're going to have with that child. And that might become easier if you have already done your observation of the child, and you know that, okay, these are the kind of questions I need to ask this child to know him better. So what are the kind of questions that you can ask? One is simple, very, like, personal questions. These are just keep them very short and very easy to answer, so that the kid does not feel pressured in answering. But just questions like, what do you like doing at home? Or what game do you enjoy the most? Or what do you do after school when you go home after school? What are the kind of things that you do? So these are the kind of questions, you can ask them. Second is open-ended, but of course non-academic. These kind of questions, when you ask them, they have no one right answer. They help students share a little bit more about who they are. Some questions like, what is something that you are really good at? Or if you could change one rule in the school, what would you change? You know, these are questions, when you ask these kind of questions, you just get to know children a little bit more, because sometimes, like I said, they feel so pressured in being in the school environment, that a lot of children, even I've seen at the age of 8 or 9, also come crying to school. And that is something that um, we need to change as teachers, the way we interact with them, the way we make the student teacher relationship. So when you ask them open ended and non academic questions, they are especially very useful for those who are shy and quiet. It might take time. They might not say give an answer in the first go, or uh, it might take 3 or 4 weeks also, but the kid will slowly open up. And the third one is observation based prompts. Like I said, one, if you have observed a kid, so you already know what kind of questions you would like to ask. Like during an art class, I saw a child who made a really detailed drawing of a body, like the kid was around 3.5, and she also like made the eyeballs and the eyebrows. And so the thing is, when you go to such a child and you're asking, oh wow, you appreciate the drawing, and you ask, you drew a really detailed picture, do you enjoy art? Or a kid comes up, you see that a kid is a little upset when they come in the morning, you go and ask her a question like, I saw that you looked a little upset this morning, would you like to talk to me about it? So when you use these kind of questions, they children feel safe and valued, and they also realize that the teacher is noticing them and noticing their efforts. And like I said, you don't really need a lot of time to you know you don't have to spend a lot of time with the children. You can just take 2 or 3 children a day, sit with them during snack time, or while you're handing out notebooks, just pause for 30 seconds to chat with that child. Or when during the morning entry or pack up time, you can select a few students to speak to. Even when you give a group work, not all students are actively participating. So if you see a student who is not participating actively in the group work, you can go and speak to that child and then have a conversation with him. So having one-on-one conversations is really a good way to know your students.
That makes a lot of sense, Pooja. And I think, like I even mentioned in the chat, that asking a question which is, probably just a question that is probably not going to help or change anything, but just that question, that one rule you could change about the school, is such a deep question to understand students, especially younger students, that what is actually pressuring them, what is actually bothering them. I think that's a great question to ask students. And I think your point about, observation based things, and specifically on the observation, when we're talking about students, two things. One, that students who are shy, like reading function here says that shy kids, like you also mentioned, Pooja, that they might not even respond to you, or might not want to answer any questions to you right in the beginning. But if we persist as teachers, as educators, then just the fact that we are asking them again and again, uh, at least at a decent frequency, gives them actually builds the trust in itself without them even trying to talk to us. Just the fact that, okay, somebody is actually bothered, somebody is actually concerned, somebody actually thinks that I exist, any of these things. So I think that's a great point from reading function, and Pooja, you too. And I think the other point that you made, which will help me segue into my next question also, is that the observation based prompt that you said, when a student is looking upset. So here, what we have done is we have observed, as an educator, we have observed the student, which is the first part of what Pooja was talking about. And now we are going to have a conversation with them. And we can have without that observation also, because sometimes we don't know what is happening with the students. Without the observation also, we can have emotions or feelings check-ins with the students. And what are these check-ins that we can do with the students? Pooja, if you can help us with that.
So, like Ritu mentioned earlier in the beginning, it is very important for us as teachers to know their emotional patterns, especially in this generation where there is hardly any talking going. Sometimes students are coming to us from backgrounds where parents are not available to have a chat with them. There's just they hardly get to spend time, and they hardly get to talk about their day or their emotions to children. And so emotion check-ins or check-ins for feelings is one of the very good way of getting to know your students early on. It could be done as a daily or a regular activity. It is not going to take up a lot of time. When you do an activity like this, the students also, one, the students are expressing how they feel. And when they do that, they also realize their own emotions. They are getting in touch with their emotions. And you, as teachers, you become aware of their emotions. And, you, on that day, you get to know which student might need a little extra attention on that day. There are different ways of doing this. One is the feelings chart, where a student might not want to talk about anything, or just they just come, they enter the class, and they point to or pick up a emotion face or an emotion card. Say if they're very happy, they pick up a happy card, or if they are very feeling sad, they pick up a sad card. A simple question from the teacher like, show me how you feel, using the feeling board. Another way is thumbs upside down. uh, it's again a quick non-verbal check of their emotions. Just show me a thumbs up if you're feeling good, or can you show it in the sideways if you're not feeling okay, or you can show a thumbs down if you're not feeling too great. The next is check-in journal. This is something that you can do with little older students once they are able to write well and express themselves well in the written form. Just they come and spend, like, say, 30 seconds. They write 1 or 2 lines to express how they feel on that day. You can have a very nice emotional journal, or you can have that they've made themselves. Um, just the first day of activity can be, let's make a journal for ourselves that we can use all through the year, and we can just check in that journal about how we are feeling that day. So these are a few ways to have check-in feelings. I'm going to take a pause here, and I would like to ask all of you if you can share some other quick strategies there are for emotions check-ins.
Right. So, what are the other things that you do? Participants who are listening, please write in. What are other things that you do? If you have questions on check-ins, like for example, if you use check-ins, should I involve co-teachers and subject teachers so that we are all on the same page about the students? So, Pooja, you'd like to respond to that?
So, yeah, I think it's very important to involve co-teachers, subject teachers on, whenever you're observing a child or you're doing a feelings check-ins. Yes, it is, because they will also be throughout the day, these students will also be spending time with those co-teachers or with those subject teachers. And if the teachers do not know that child as well as you know them, it's not you. They might feel comfortable with you, but they might not be feeling comfortable.
And say that yes, it is good to have this conversation with your teachers and co-teachers, but like Pooja had warned us or told us right in the beginning, talking to teachers is good, listening to teachers is good, but having a preconceived notion about a student as they come into our class from teachers who have taught them before, that is not okay. Yes, knowing that okay, this student can be like this student may be that way, that is fine, and we should share this without the judgment or the the finality of how these students are in general. So I think that is great. So so Pooja, are you back? Can we move
Yes,
ahead? Okay,
yes.
great. So just observing to actually having a conversation and then actually going down into understanding students' feelings. Now let's also go down a little bit more and talk about how we get the students to actually talk about their feelings or express themselves.
So one of the ways where you can get the students to express themselves are like, conducting low pressure activities to encourage expression. Uh, Low pressure activities are activities where the children are not going to be judged or graded, or they do not have to learn something and come, like how we do for academics. Say you're doing an activity like show and tell, like you can see in the graphic here, this girl is holding a small keychain, and she comes to the class and she talks about the keychain, like it could be a keychain which her favorite aunt gave to her, or she went and bought it herself from the pocket money that she got from her parents. So when you do these kinds of show and tell activities with them, you can ask the students to bring something from home, their favorite toy, their favorite object, or something that they really like, and talk about it. Just imagine how happy and proud the children will feel when they come up on stage or they come up in front of the class and talk about something that they really like. And when you do this kind of an activity like show and tell, it makes them feel really proud of themselves or whatever they have brought about. So these are what low pressure activities should be like. They should be short and simple. They have to be non-judgmental and non-graded. And these are the kind of activities that will help you reveal more about the student. So one is the show and tell, where it tells you what are the kind of things that makes them feel happy or proud of. Another way of doing it could be, just ask the students to say, draw yourself doing something that you love, you know. So an activity like that will reveal their interests, their comfort zones. You will get to know what they really like and love to do. You can also have an activity like mood color of the day. We always say that colors and expressions go hand in hand. Like, if somebody is really angry or upset, they might use black or dark colors a lot. And, just a prompt like choose a color that matches your mood today. And they may pick up for yellow for happy, blue for calm, or something like that. This again will give you a little bit insight into their emotional state, and their self awareness. They also become self aware of the emotions that they are going through. Or something like a dream school drawing, or writing about what their ideal school would be like. This is when you do an activity like this, it helps reveal, what kind of what they value or what they want in a learning space, because parents just put them in schools and teachers teach them. But I don't think a student is ever asked, what do you want your learning space to be like? And so a dream school drawing or writing about a dream school is one of the very good way of knowing your students.
Thanks, Pooja. That is really useful. And I think a couple of things in the chat also. Not just about expression, but also understanding. I mean, yes, it is about expression of feelings and all of that. It is, I mean, Mrinal is saying that she asks the students how you are right at the beginning, right after the prayer is done. That's a great practice to have. Then there is also someone who's also saying that we need to model how to talk about our emotions. We also have to show students that it's okay to talk about it this way. These are things that you can say. These things are allowed, because sometimes, and especially this is true for this is true for everyone, and it becomes more and more true for male students who basically are kind of teased or reprimanded when they talk about their emotions. So it is good if they have someone who can model that. Okay, you know what? Yeah, I'm feeling sad. I'm going to cry, and that all that is fine. And Ritu Martin has also said that you can have reflection questions followed by sharing in a group. That is absolutely true. If the students are a little bit older and they're able to their write about their feelings, having the right kind of reflection questions are definitely going to be very helpful. So now that we have done this, so firstly, thanks a lot, Pooja. This has been really informative so far. And we'll just take a pause here, and I'm just going to put up another question. So first, can you just go through the question, and then we'll put up the poll in a few seconds, so that you can understand what the what the question is. Essentially, what we are asking is, we have given you a scenario, and we are asking you what the teacher is trying to do through this activity that they have given. Okay, I think we can put up the poll now. So the poll is up there for everyone. Okay, I think we've closed the poll now, and I think all the results are in. I think we can move to the next slide. Yes, so most of you have again gotten it right. Both A and B are the right answer, so that means option C is the right answer. So that basically means that all of you got it right, because A has also been selected by a few. It's just been that you probably didn't look at the other options after that, similarly with B. But yes, the teacher is not only doing this for the student so they can express themselves, but they're also doing it for themselves so that they can understand the student better. So that's a great response. I think this is great for the webinar. Now we're going to change gears a little bit. Now we'll talk about it from a slightly more parent perspective, and understand what a parent would like to know, and from that understand how teachers can help parents with this kind of information and knowledge. And maybe there are different ways in which a parent would look at things and how a teacher would look at things. So for that, I would like to call on Reshma. And Reshma has been working with us for again a few years, but she's been a parent for many more than that. So yeah, hi, welcome Reshma. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and give us an overview of what you will be talking about?
Thank you, Anirudh. So I'm Reshma Talreja, and I've been working with Things Education for the past 4 years. I would like to believe that I'm a pretty hands-on mom. I'm raising an 8-year-old girl, and I truly believe that a child's holistic education is like a shared responsibility of the parents and the teachers. And in spirit of that, what we are recommending in this webinar is that teachers hold a parents teachers meeting at the start of the year to get to know the students better instead of just after assessments to discuss the students' academic performance. Now, in light of this, I'm going to touch on three things. One is that, as has been mentioned before by Ritu, every child absorbs and expresses their understanding differently. And a child's learning level is not just about the final output. And finally, we look at how knowing a child's interests can help teachers make learning more meaningful.
Start with the first part where you're saying that there's difference in how the child is going to not just learn but also express their learning. So if you can just go through that and explain this to us, and what we as educators can do about it.
So, as Ritu had mentioned in the start, every child will show their learning, their understanding, their knowledge differently. Not all children are totally comfortable with writing long answers from the beginning itself. Children express through drawings, through role play, etc. Now, I know of a child who understands the concept very well, but whenever asked a question like a written worksheet question, the child will just answer in one word or maybe one sentence. So when the parents spoke to the child, what the child had to say was that I had thought about everything to arrive at this sentence. So the child is not writing about all the points or his thinking process. He's directly writing his conclusion as the answer. But it might not be very clear for a teacher to understand this. Now, personally, I find it very difficult to get my daughter to write long answers. But she expresses well and she puts in a lot of information and points when she makes flowcharts or concept maps or is allowed to doodle in between her answer. So, the point being that parents have some insights into how their child is expressing their knowledge or their learning. Similarly, children absorb very differently. When my daughter was young, we would notice that she was always listening to our conversations, even if she was in another room. In the first parents teacher meeting at a preschool, the teacher corroborated this. They said she's going around roaming the entire class, but whenever we ask her any question, she replies promptly. So we know that she listens. Now, when a teacher is having a parent teacher meeting at the start of the year, it might not easily strike a parent to share all this information with the teacher. So, what teachers can do is make questions or prompts that are aimed towards getting parents to share this. For example, teachers can ask, how does your child learn best? By watching, by listening, or by doing things? Or teachers can answer, How does a child express their understanding? Do they like to draw? Do they like to act it out? Do they like to talk about it? And so on.
So basically, not just the learning, but also how would I come to know that they've learned? Both of these sides we need to be very careful about. Great. So now moving on, you also said that we need to. You said something about the learning level and the final output. So if you can just shed some more light on that.
Again, I want to start with narrating a very personal example. I always have found my daughter's drawing skills to be average. So, one summer break, I asked somebody to help her practice some drawing. After the summer break, I went and met her art teacher. She had been consistently scoring A in her graded A in arts, and I was clueless about why the sir would do that. So when I spoke to the art teacher, what he told me was that she was very original and she was very creative, and that she was very confident in taking initiative in the art activities that he was conducting. And he told me that he considers all this along with the technical skill of drawing when he grades her. So, what I realized was that his perspective was far more open and broader than mine. I was only focusing on the technical skill or the perfection of the output. Now, this can happen to parents very often when they think that the output that the child is giving is the only way to understand their learning. But when it comes to learning, especially in early years, the entire process is more important than the final output. Are the children thinking deeply? Are they applying themselves? Are they able to work independently? So, when during a early parent teacher meeting, a teacher will ask a parent questions like, what are your child's strength, or what are areas that you think your child needs more support in or help in? The parent might bring about such issues. Now, this conversation can help teachers either identify genuine areas where the child needs more focus or more support, or the teacher might see some gaps in the parent's perspective and help the parent change how they are thinking about the learning process, so that throughout the year now, the parents will view their child's growth and their child's learning from probably a better and broader perspective.
Great. I think that last point really makes a lot of sense, Reshma. So I think the other thing that you mentioned early on was understanding child's interests to make it more meaningful. And this goes back to what Pooja had also mentioned, that getting to know students' interests is an important part of knowing a student outside of their academics. And I think that point was also mentioned by Ritu. So it is kind of coming back a full circle. And so, what would a parent like to, what are the things that a parent can share which a teacher would find valuable?
Yes. So this is a very special experience for me. When my daughter started grade one, the teacher asked me, what are the activities that make her happy? So I replied, I gave her some activities like dancing, singing, and so on. And then I asked the teacher, are you asking from the perspective of participation in extracurricular activities in the school? She said, no, I want to know how I can engage her better in the classes. That year, my daughter showed very good academic as well as social growth, and I think that she had a very good relation with that teacher. So, when children are given activities in the format that they like, in the way that they like to do things, they will engage more with the content and they will be more wholeheartedly participate in that. This helps them develop confidence, and it also makes them more persistent in trying to learn. Now, imagine if there is a role play activity and a child who enjoys to act is participating in that activity. When the teacher comes and gives a secret smile to the child and says that I know that you love to act, the child feels very happy and the child feels seen and valued by the teacher. So during the early PTM meeting, if teachers ask questions like what interests your child, what makes your child happy, or what motivates your child, the parents can share some things like this. And I think this will also make the parents feel very happy because they are assured that the teacher is thinking about and caring for each and every student in the class.
So I think thanks a lot, Reshma. I think you've given us us educators, a lot of things to think about. And yeah, it's amazing that you are, a parent and an educator, and you're doing this together. And so you're getting these various insights and perspectives in your life as well. So that's great. So now, before we move ahead, I'd like to say that if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, please share them in the chat. We will be answering them right after this question that we are asking you, which is, uh, what is a strategy that you would use with your students to get them to know better. We've had a whole hour of this conversation, so just wanted to know from you which strategy would you use to know your students better. So I think now we can move on to see the results of the poll. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay. Again, I think people have just gone by the chronology of the order. And to be honest, we were being mischievous here, more specifically me, where I gave 3 correct answers here. So, yeah, any of the 3 that you do, B, C, or D, you create a healthy environment in class so that students can share with you about their lives outside of the school. You can speak to the parents, and you can also speak to the students to understand their home environment. Creating in-class assignment so that it doesn't tax students at home is fair. It's a good thing to do, but it's an academic thing. It won't help you understand students beyond academics. So with that, I would just like to summarize whatever we've spoken about in this last hour. We started with the fact that we have to get to know our students beyond their academic abilities. Academic abilities, we have created assessments, multiple formative, summative assessments to know, but how do we get to know students beyond their academic abilities and get to understand their interests, their home context, how they like to express themselves, etc., etc. Then we got a teacher's perspective as to what are the things that a teacher can do to know the students beyond their academic abilities. And finally, we also saw it from a parent's point of view as to what are things that they expect from teachers. And sometimes, like the parent here, Reshma, said that sometimes the parents may not have the right point of view. And to understand a parent's point of view, it is also important that the teachers figure out ways to ask parent questions so that they can get a deeper understanding of what the parents' expectations are. So based on that, I mean, after that, all I have to say is that, like I said, we have multiple online courses that are available right on this platform. You can see there are more than 10 courses here, right from early learning to different kinds of pedagogy like project-based learning, inquiry learning, and also things like planning, which is understanding by design, etc. We also have certain cognitive and behavioral science courses like motivation and keeping students' attention. And I think our most recent or the most latest course is on Gen AI and how Gen AI can be used by teachers and what do you do when students start using Gen AI. So those are the kinds of courses that we have. And with that, we are going to pause here, and we are hoping for your questions and your thoughts in the chat so that we can respond to them.
I will ask the first question. What should I do if a student shares something serious like signs of anxiety or stress at home?
Right. So I think, Ritu, if you can take this question up first.
I think one of the things that maybe we should have also emphasized earlier is that all of what we shared today is for getting to know most of your students, majority of your students who are coming in. However, there will be students who might have some deeper issues, deeper concerns because of something that is happening at home or maybe something difficult that they've gone through, and if they're showing signs of stress and anxiety, that is definitely not something that as teachers we should be expected to deal with in any sort of medical or professional manner. What the best thing to do in such a case would be to either speak to the school counselor if a school counselor is available. That should be the first thing to do. And if there is no school counselor available, speaking to the parents and asking them to get the child professional help from someone who understands what the issues are, how to work with kids of this age, how to help them through it. So while it's important for us as teachers to be aware and to look out for these signs, we probably aren't equipped to help the student beyond referring them or getting them the kind of help that they need from a counselor or from someone who's professionally capable of doing that.
Yeah. So another question is, are there any ready-made templates or tool you recommend to help with students' observation?
Right. So there are a few templates that are available that can be used, but any of the ready-made templates are not going to be, useful as is for you because every classroom and every teacher and every student is going to be different. Having said that, we have a few classroom observation tools that we have at Things Education. more than happy to share that with you. Please get in touch with us, and we will talk to you about those as well. Anything else? Pooja, have you used any of these templates for observation before?
So we don't really go for ready-made templates or everything because, like I said, each class will need a different checklist, and each year also you will need a different kind of a checklist. So basically, you will just have to spend some time, maybe the first 2 days in the classroom, and you will need to know what are the things that I want to observe and make your own kind of a checklist that really relates to your classroom.
So another question is, how often do I do the check-ins and use journals in a week without losing too much of teaching time?
Yeah. So Pooja, if you can, I mean, you are the best person to answer this, right?
So, like I said before, you know, don't need to take out a lot from your academic part of the day. Uh, every school might have a snack time or a free play time, and or when they come into the school in the morning just before assembly, they have like a few minutes. You know, you just have to make a routine where if you want to do it every day, it just has to become a routine where they have to understand that before I go for my assembly, I'll just take 30 seconds and write down how I feel today if they're doing the journal, or the check-in board or something is not going to really take a lot of time. It's a 10-second or a 20-second job where they just pick up the face and put it on the chart, you know. So these kind of check-ins, actually, you can do them every day. If, like I said, if you don't really have that time, I would suggest maybe at least 3 days a week is something that you can spend to do these kind of activities.
Thanks, Pooja. Ritu, you want to add anything to that? Or?
I agree with everything that Pooja has said so far. As what I add is that it doesn't, and I think Pooja already mentioned it, but it doesn't really end in the first couple of weeks, right? It's something that you have to do throughout the year. So don't pressure yourself to get to know everything about your student right in the first 2 weeks. It is, you will learn more about your students as you go on. You will get to know them deeper, you will get to know them better. So if you don't have that kind of time and there's a lot of pressure to finish your syllabus, just make sure that you keep doing it. Don't stop after the first 2 weeks.
Right. Thanks. And I think, Reshma, you also had, you were working on how to get these things kind of integrated into the academics integrated into the curriculum as well, right? You were working on this, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, on the social emotional aspects of learning, and I totally agree with Pooja that routine is just 20 seconds or maybe not more than a minute, and it doesn't take away much from the academic time, but it adds a lot of value in one more way that I think has not been mentioned yet, is that the child acknowledges the feeling, and sometimes that is all that is needed. So, for example, to just say it out that maybe I'm sad today or I'm angry today is because if the matter is not too severe, is resolution enough for the child to actually move on, with a more open mind or with a more fresher mind throughout the day. So, there is this other one big benefit of having this emotional check in is that the self journey for the child will get, probably, if it's not too severe, gets over there and then.
Yeah, so we have two more questions. First one is, you spoke about multiple ways of expression. How can I assess students fairly if they prefer drawing or talking over writing?
That's a fair question. I don't think we'll have the time to answer that because we have already overshot the hour. Um, we have done a different webinar on rubrics and assessment. It would be great if you can, look at that, because there we have spelled out as to how it doesn't really matter the kind of assessment as long as you have a robust rubric and the right kind of questions that you have asked. So I'm not going to go into that today. Sorry about that. Yeah. So I think there was one question about TLMs. I think Prinkle. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I would like. Teaching TLM stands for teaching learning material, which I know educators should not be using short forms without spelling it out at some point of time. So teaching learning materials, anything like right from textbooks to you're making some small cards or you're making resource sheets or worksheets. Any of these things are included in teaching and learning material. Even the notebook that the student has is a part of the teaching learning material because that is what the student is using to learn something. If the student is using website on the internet to gain some knowledge or some information they're getting out of it, then that is a teaching learning material for them. That's a learning material for them. If you are as a teacher using a YouTube video, then that is a teaching material for you. So anything that you use in the classroom or outside the classroom as a teacher for teaching and as a student for learning, any of those things and all of those things are included in this teaching learning material, which we kind of just, very easily just call it TLM because we like short forms. Okay, yeah. So Srishti, you said there was a last question.
Yeah, the question is, will I get a certificate for this webinar?
Okay, so I think that's a very good question. Thank you for asking this question, whoever asked this question. You will get a certificate for this webinar and any other webinar that we do very soon, within a month. For that, you will have to not just attend the webinar, you will have to go through a small small assessment. And once you go through the assessment, you will be able to get the certificate as well. And all of these things will be put up on the same platform, the TEPS courses platform that you are on right now. And we will definitely send you an email about this when it happens. Apart from that, there is now that you have joined us for this webinar, you will also be part of our mailing list. So every week you will get a new newsletter edition right in your email inbox. And that starts not even an hour from now. You will receive this email from us at 6 p.m. and hopefully for a long time after that. With that, I'd like to firstly thank all of you for joining us and being part of this webinar. I'd also like to thank our experts, Pooja, Reshma, and Ritu, and everyone who has been in the background, who has helped us with this. And like I said, we are doing this from 3 different places in India. Technology, So anyway, so thanks a lot, everyone. And with that, we come to the end of the webinar, the 5th in this 2nd season. We are doing lives so that we can keep talking to you. This is what people told us in our 1st season, that, hey, don't keep talking amongst yourselves, talk to us. And so we are doing it live. So please, next time also, please come back and we'll have our next, we'll have our next webinar in the 2nd week of July, which is on the 11th of July. So looking forward to seeing all of you on the 11th. Thank you, everyone, and see you.